Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Community Unit School District 300 Board of Education. Would you please call the roll, Mr. Alessio?
Alessio, present. Burley. Fiorentino.
Present.
Garcia.
Present.
Lopez. Miller. Stevens.
Present. As you can see, we are a few members short tonight. However, we are expecting one more at some point, but we do have a quorum, so we can conduct business. So thank you very much. Could I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Fiorentino.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Alessio, aye. Stevens.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Mr. Hyde?
Sir, Mr. Stevens, board members, members of the community, staff, and students. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this evening's meeting. At this time, board members, as you know, last week I sent out an email to all staff announcing the unfortunate passing of one of our former employees. At this time, I would ask that we take a moment of silence in honor of Miss Linda Laveris. So if you'll please join me for a moment. Thank you. Just a brief summary of Ms. Laveris' experience and tenure with our district. She did pass away Monday, September 5th, after a long, protracted battle with cancer. She began her employment in August 30th of 1982 and worked with us throughout her career in various roles. For example, she served as the Dundee Crown High School's building supervisor of students. She worked in transportation, at Perry Elementary School as a clerk. She also worked as a head secretary at Perry Elementary School. She served in various roles as a substitute secretary. She was also the Dundee Crown High School secretary for several years, worked at central office as an executive secretary, and then her most recent role from 2004 to 2015, she operated as a purchasing agent for our district. She retired at the end of her career with us. So again, thank you for taking a moment to allow us to recognize her.
And I apologize that I'm a little rusty running meetings. I skipped right by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Hyde?
Yes, sir. I was going to bring them in next as Ms. Keys brought them up to us. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Chris Sainsbury, principal at Perry Elementary School, who will bring in our students who will lead us in the pledge. And these are a very special group of students tonight. And Ms. Sainsbury will share with the board and community why they were selected to be here this evening.
Good evening, Board of Education, Mr. Hyde, the community of District 300. My name is Chris Sainsbury. I'm the principal of Perry Elementary School. And one of my favorite things to do is to celebrate our students. And tonight is one of those nights that we get the opportunity to do so. So, of course, they are here to lead the pledge, which is quite the opportunity for us to display our school and making sure that we recognize our students while honoring our country. It is a real pleasure and a real honor to do so. So these students in front of you tonight are incredibly special. Also their parents who have come to support them, who are in the audience as well, because these students have attended or did attend every single minute of every single school day in the school year 15-16. And I just want to really recognize their perseverance and their grit and their ability to come to school when tired, and also their parents' incredible commitment as leaders of their household to making sure that they make school a priority for their students. Clearly, one of the best ways to increase student achievement is to make sure that students are at school. And these kids have done so. They've been there for every single minute of instruction last year and are well on their way to having a great school year this year. So at this time, I'd like to recognize Isaac Vargas,
Big wave.
Genesis Diaz Chavez, Jarrell Hale, Christopher Estrada Munoz, Vanessa Medina Vega, Brian Gallardo.
And before you go any further, parents, parents, please feel free to get up and come up here if you want to take pictures as this unrolls. After the pledge, the students will be coming behind us and shaking our hand, and parents, you're welcome to come as well and take pictures wherever you'd like. So please, I'm sorry.
Will everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Item number 7, are there any board announcements by anyone? If not, I'll move to number 8, Mr. Hyde.
Mr. Stevens, at this time, I would like to go ahead and transition into our next segment of the agenda. This is where we recognize our staff and students. One of our teachers and lead coaches for the Dundee Crown Incubator Program, if they could please join us. Not with us. So a little bit of background as we transition and bring our team in. Beginning in the 15-16 school year, as the board will recall, one of our new Pathways programs was the installation of the Incubator Program. The Incubator Program was designed to provide an opportunity to explore their entrepreneurial spirit, but in a very meaningful way, as they're aligned to existing community and business owners and members who work with students to go from concept to reality. We held our very own Shark Tank last year. If I'm stealing your thunder, just do this, and I'll let you take it from there. Getting close? Okay. So we held our very own Shark Tank, and it's my pleasure to introduce our district winners, and then there's more information, so I will transition it to you, sir.
That was kind of all the information. I want to start by thanking Superintendent Fred Hyde and the board for their support and the opportunity to be here tonight. Last year, as Mr. Hyde said, Dundee Crown was able to run the Business Incubator Program. In this year-long course, student teams of 5 and 6 learned how to start their business by taking a concept into fruition with the help of 70-plus community volunteers. The culmination of this class was a pitch for investment and the opportunity to run their very own business. Not only did First Step, which is short for Save the Earth Project, win our pitch night, but they were awarded the opportunity to pitch at Incubator EDU's National Pitch Competition. Here, First Step beat out 5 of the country's top 5 teams in order to earn further investment and earn the title of Incubator EDU's first annual National Pitch Champions. I want to say thank you for making this year so special and give a congratulations from the bottom of my heart. As I call off their names, please hold your applause till the end. Gabe Martinez, Cotemo Fabian, Sir Charles Gilly, and Esteban Gonzalez. Thank you, boys.
So a little bit of additional background information as it relates to that group. We've been working with them now since the start of school. They contacted us. Part of the business idea behind the incubator program is not just to develop an idea conceptually. It is to actually implement it and see if it can become a profit-generating opportunity for their students. And so since that time, one of their requirements is an area to have secure composting take place. So we have been working with them, and we've identified a few areas. They're selecting one closest to their campus, and they're actually going to go out to the area and measure it so that they can ensure they can put a series of composting bins out there. That ensures that there is no odor. It also minimizes the risk of any potential pests, but it also maximizes the composting that takes place within those containers. So it's exciting to see where they will continue to take this program. So. Absolutely, and we will provide additional updates, and we'll see if we can't take the board out for a tour of the facility once they have it up and running. Okay. At this time, I would like to also bring out in our student recognition Mr. Steve Allen, coach from Jacobs High School. He is the Special Olympics track head coach, and he has some students and some recognitions we want to share this evening. This is becoming a pattern every year. All right. It's okay. You earn those medals, let them jingle all they want.
Well, thank you very much. Worked with a special last few years now, and I just want to say we had another exciting season, another year, starting last spring. Again, just before spring break, and these kids put a lot of work into it, a lot of heart and soul. We were everything from throwing softballs to long jumping, broad jumping, sprints, relays, and it all paid off down the road. We had our spring games up at Lake Zurich, consisting of more than 25 teams and agencies, and we had all these kids qualified, and a couple more actually, but unfortunately, Mother Nature decided to move in and produced a pretty raucous thunderstorm that day, so they canceled the field events, which consists of the softball throw and the long jump. So a lot of our kids, well, some of our kids were nixed out of that. So they do what's called a drawing, a lottery type thing. It's the only way they can do it, and a few of us made it down there. But better than that, when we did go down to campus of Illinois State University in Normal Bloomington, as usual, just came in and had a great time at opening ceremonies. We were all up there, and then proceeded to, with everything we had, the effort and the heart again, just I have both relay teams up here who actually took the gold medal in their divisions. Hold your applause. Consisting of these individuals right here. And then we also had medal, some of these guys medaled in individual events as well. Before I introduce these guys, I just want to say thanks to the board for your support, our families for the support out here, coaches. We're all under the umbrella and guise of Coach Blazek, sitting next to our very supportive Principal Valley, next to him. And I see the families in the audience that have been very supportive and helpful. Mary Lou was big in our communications department and as well as on the field with us. My wife, Honey, thanks for the artwork for our spirit wear, artist Tana. And so let me get to it up here. Nathan Lewandowski is here, former athlete, now one of my assistant coaches, invaluable. Tim Van Dorn, another valuable assistant, and in his own right, he coaches at Elmhurst College at the moment and comes over here and help us out. Angela Zollner was on our relay team, and was Sarah Van Dorn, Tim's sister. And we had a rookie join us this year, a new guy, Bruce Kruger. Thanks for coming out. Bruce was on our relay team. Aaron Ehrlich got first time out this year too, and just came out, proceeded to win not only the gold in the relay, but the gold in the 100 meters for his division statewide. Nice going, Ehrlich. And Brianna and Caitlin Edwards, sisters. Invaluable. Brianna picked up a couple medals down there as well. And Ben Ziemba, thanks for joining us this year, Ben. So again, this is something that we really can't do without support from everybody. So again, thanks much for what you bring and what these guys bring. It makes it just that much more easier for us to just do what we do and to have the fun we do. And the families too. Thank you guys for being there and supporting us through all this. It's not easy, I know. So thanks again. All right.
I hope so. I hope so. I just saw you do that. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. So once again, I think it should not go without being said, and I'm not just trying to extend our meeting, but really, you heard a lot of kudos and thanks being given, but I don't know, unless you've actually participated and helped support this event, just how much time staff dedicate outside of the working day, and how many of our high school students are so closely affiliated with supporting these students throughout the day. I see them as they practice, as they go through games, as they play mock games in basketball, whether in the track. I mean, we just have an exceptional community that puts our students first, and it's just the level of enthusiasm and commitment is just simply exceptional. So I wanted to make sure I added that, because I joked with them as they entered. This has become an annual-ish event for us, and that's a good thing. That means that we continue to keep that focus on our students, and we continue to be student-centric. And for all students. So very positive thing. I have two more quick announcements, quick things to share in the educator, as we recognize our educators and students. And we haven't had one of these in 2 months, 3 months. So I am very excited to announce tonight's Educator Spotlight Series. As you recall, we established the Educator Spotlight Series as a means for us to recognize all the great things that are happening in our school. So tonight I have the privilege of introducing an 8th grade English Language Arts teacher as our next District 300 Educator Spotlight Series member. Again, the goal of the Educator Spotlight Series is to seek out innovative educators who go above and beyond the call of duty to educate our students, to inspire them and empower them with the tools they need to be successful in the classroom and to flourish in the workplace. Tonight, I'd like to invite her, and I'm sure she has family here, but I'd like to recognize Deanne Gidland, again, 8th grade English Language Arts teacher, and have you come to up front, the podium, and be recognized. You don't have to say anything right now. We're going to show your video, so you have a few minutes to kind of prepare yourself. But as an English Language Arts teacher, I think you'll do just fine. Well, you don't have to, but if you'll join, if you head over there where Anthony is. As you know, in District 300, we continually strive to ensure that each student is college or career ready upon graduation, and the work that Deanne accomplishes inside her classroom absolutely serves to further our mission. So on behalf of our district, I am pleased to announce you as this month's Educator Spotlight. So if we could show the video.
Hi, my name is Deanne Gidlin. I'm an 8th grade ELA teacher, and I work at Algonquin Middle School. The personality in my class this year is wide and varied. The students are eager to learn. The students come with a wide variety of background knowledge. They also come with a wide variety of tastes in literature, which is why Workshop works so well for them, because they bring their own flavor into the classroom and they are eager to share it, and they're very vocal. On Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, our class engages in Reader's Workshop. We start every class with a brief read aloud. We will be reading The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom, which is a piece of fiction. It goes hand in hand with the piece of nonfiction we'll be reading for the district, which is Tuesdays with Maury. So the students will have a comparison within the same author. We'll start with that. The students will be given some time to discuss the read aloud. Then they will break off into their own books. They are all reading different novels. At some point during the course of the class, they will get a few minutes to discuss the novels they're reading. And while the students are doing that, I generally sit down and I conference with as many students as I can conference with one-on-one to see how they're doing, why they chose a book, see how it fits in with the goals they've set for themselves for the quarter, that type of thing. The students basically lead the charge with workshop. They're choosing their own books. They choose how they're going to respond to their books. They choose whether or not they want to read ahead. Even with assigned books, if they want to read ahead, they can read ahead. They choose their discussion questions. They are very empowered to be readers and not just students. It's really important to build relationships with your students, especially with the way I implement Readers Workshop in my classroom, because there's a lot of trust. The students need to know that they can trust me, and I can trust them, that they are more than a grade in a grade book to me, more than a student number on the roster. The only way to do that really is to have those meaningful conversations with them about things that matter to them. You will find that kids want to perform, they want to do better, and they have respect for you, so they will do more for you than for someone that they don't feel respected by. The biggest challenge I see with my kids is they don't embrace reading. They have a lot of things competing for their time and their attention between video games and social media, so to get them to embrace something that's more traditional can be difficult. They're not aware of the relevant literature that's out there for them, so it's very important that I am at things that they would enjoy and embrace. At the end of my career, I would hope that my students will come back and be participants in society, be independent thinkers, be readers that read everything, that they absorb, not only social media, they're absorbing books, they're absorbing articles, the newspapers, journals, and they feel just like real critical thinkers. I want them to be able to think outside their own little box. And outside the box we sometimes put them in. I want them just to keep going. I want them to surpass me as a reader. And that's pretty hard. I read quite a bit.
So as Deanne makes her way to the microphone, just real quick for the board and for the community, I have had the pleasure of being in her classroom on multiple occasions, and at times I apologize, but I will tell you, every student's reading varied genre, at varied levels. That's not a skill that students come into our classrooms with. It is very much something that has to be coached and modeled. And so from me to you, as educator to educator, thank you. And you absolutely a recognition, very well deserved and very much deserved, so thank you.
Thank you very much. I feel very fortunate to be able to do a job that I'm so passionate about. I love what I do. I love going to work every day. And I feel fortunate to be surrounded by the 8th grade team at AMS who supports me in my endeavors, and my administrators, Eric Jensen and Andy Ranke. Without their support, I could not make the time that I need in order to instill Readers Workshop effectively with my kids. And thank you, board. I'm glad all of you are able to see what a wonderful tool that is for teaching kids to be lifelong readers. Thank you.
So I kind of get the impression you have family or colleagues here. Do you want to introduce them?
Yes, that's my husband, John, with the phone trying to grab a picture. He's very shy.
I have a horrible habit of doing that, by the way. I'm sorry. And then who are the...
Mr. Hyde, our superintendent.
Pleasure to meet you, sir. And then are you... I see two young ladies in the back, too. Do you want to...
Those are my wonderful teammates, Laura Grant and Nicole Hapanovich. Laura also teaches 8th grade ELA at AMS, and Nicole is our science teacher at AMS 8th grade.
See, I'm going to make sure everybody gets their
part of that
kudos
wonderful team that is so important and so supportive.
And for those of you in the audience who thought that maybe we had an audio technical issue, we did not. This is a small venue, and we felt that you deserved the recognition that you so much deserved and worked hard for. We gave you the stadium effect. So
great.
that was our version of having you sing at halftime at this Super Bowl. How about that?
Thank you.
Okay.
Deanne, before you leave, I have a kind of a loaded question for you, and I don't mean for it to sound like a loaded question, but how do you feel about the district's one-to-one program and its impact on students reading books?
Oh, that is a loaded question.
I know.
I think the one-to-one is a great tool, but it is one tool. I don't think it should be the curriculum. I don't think it should be the only tool, just like you wouldn't expect a talented carpenter to use just a hammer. The same thing with the talented teacher. They need to be able to pull in many different tools, and I use are different. While that Chromebook may be great for 1 or 2 days a week, the other 2 days, forget it. I'll lose the kids if I can't communicate with them. I think it's a great tool, but I think it's really important to keep it as one tool. That's my...
Thank you.
Oh. Thank you. I was worried about that one.
We need to get that on a bumper sticker somehow. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are they photobombing you? You always get the handshake. Thank you. Last but certainly not least in our recognition this evening, board members, as you know, last year we initiated our employee recognition programs again. So beginning last year, we started to provide years of service pins for all of our employees based on a number of years of service, typically in increments of 5 or more years. We did, again, replicate that initiative this year. That information went out about a week ago. Mr. McGinn's staff worked tirelessly to get all the envelopes and worked with Mr. Mora and their teams to make sure that we got the right list, we got the right number of service years. Mr. Williams will let me know if we missed anyone. I'm sure somebody will reach out someplace, but hopefully we got everything right. But tonight, it's my absolute pleasure to not only give some accolades there and know that our building principals are recognizing those staff in their buildings, but to also recognize the number of staff who have 30 or more years of service in our district. So I'm going to read some names. I'm going to apologize in advance if I get anyone's name incorrect. But we have Jeffrey Prignitz, Dundee Highlands Elementary School with 30 years. Charles Bombalis, who is here this evening for his multiple retirements. District Office Administration, classroom teacher, custodian, District Operations Director, Assistant Superintendent for Operations and Maintenance, 30-plus years. Barbara Cunningham from Algonquin Middle School, 31 years. Ms. Sarah Kodrowski, Liberty Elementary School, 31 years. Susan Burke from Newbert Elementary School, 31 years. Barbara Dubow, Westfield Community School, 31 years. Karen Ann Fitzsimmons at Westfield Community School, 31 years. Kim Bieber, Newbert Elementary School, 31 years. Fred Wendt, Jacobs High School, 31 years. Linda Brody, Wright Elementary School with 31 years. Donna, Sarich, Westfield Community School, 31 years. She retired at 2016. Margaret Molnar, Dundee Highlands Elementary School, 32 years. Cynthia Vondrasic, thank you. Dundee Crown High School, 32 years. Patricia Whitecotton, Gulfview Elementary School, 32 years. Helen Lawrence, Hampshire High School, 32 years. Robert Frazier, Jacobs High School, 32 years. Barbara Wallenberger, Liberty Elementary School, 33 years. Luann Nelson, Algonquin Middle School, 33 years. Mark Betcher, Dundee Crown High School, was with us for 33 years and retired at the end of last school year. Roseanne Day, Lincoln Prairie Elementary School, 33 years and retired at the end of last school year. Jennifer Schumacher, Dundee Middle School, 34 years. Mary Frazier, Dundee Highlands Elementary School, 35 years. Deborah, Yazel, thank you, Dundee Middle School, 35 years. David Merck, Hampshire Elementary School, retired last year with 35 years of service. Chris Nilsson, Hampshire High School, retired with 35 years last year. Mike Bielli. Carpentersville Middle School, 36 years. Lisa Betcher's been with us at Dundee High School for 36 years. Jesus Melgosa, Dundee Crown High School with 36 years. Peggy Belinsky, District Office and Administration for 37 years. Margaret Shramuk, thank you, sir. Eastview Elementary School, 37 years. She retired at the end of 2016. Patricia Peterson, Dundee Highlands Elementary, is still with us. Excuse me, I almost prematurely retired her. 38 years. John Bloomquist, Dundee Crown High School, retired with 39 years last year. Stephen Rennie, Hampshire Middle School, 39 years, retired last year. Thomas Russell, Dundee Crown High School, 40 years of service, retired at the end of last school year. Craig Sunstead, who's still with us, District Office and Administration, 43 years of service to date. And we still have one person. This is absolutely amazing, because I don't think anyone will ever catch this individual. I truly don't. And it's a real testament to a commitment to public schools in our community. But Rita Kruer, I pronounced that right, Dundee Highlands Elementary School, 52 years of service to our community. So I think that's a discussion for another meeting. But the reason I wanted to acknowledge these individuals again. Not all of the names read were retirees. I gave you an indication if they retired at the end of the year, at end of last year. But we are going to recognize them with a special token of our appreciation, and I'll announce that at a future meeting. We're going to invite them out to be recognized. Again, you don't necessarily have to be retired to be recognized, and anyone who serves that much time in public education deserves some acknowledgement. So thank you for basically being patient with me as we get through our recognition. At that time, that concludes the recognition, and we can move into the superintendent's report unless there's any comments, concerns, or questions from the board. Not seeing any. I'll ask Mr. Bombalis to please join us at the podium. The first portion of the superintendent's report is the summer construction projects update. Mr. Bombalis.
Good evening. We'll go quickly as soon as I see my first slide. And I had to do it. That's how out of shape I am here. Here we go. Summer construction. I'm going to talk about 5 different things that were completed this summer. The first one, and the first 4 we'll go through very quickly. There was an underground diesel fuel tank out at Hampshire Middle School. The second week of August, we did pull that out of ground. Came out successfully. We're in the midst right now of doing reimbursement through the state LUST program, underground storage tank removal program, and that's being handled right now. The Jacobs High School put in a solar panel through a grant Mr. Frazier worked on with our grants department. That has been successfully installed, and they are going to put out their press release and do things on their website coming up very quickly. At Carpentersville Middle, we did some auditorium lighting. We did get the house lighting done thus far. They're in the midst of working on the dimming rack and the sound system there, and all of that work is planned to be completed by the end of this month. Carpentersville Middle Food Pantry did open 2 weeks ago tomorrow successfully. So we had been working on that for just about a year. Took a part of the dock at Carpentersville Middle and turned it into a food pantry that is being run by the Northern Illinois Food Bank and the Chapel Church. And we worked with a gentleman named Craig Raditz on that, and it worked out very successfully and very, very well. And then the last one that we'll spend a little more time on is the Carpentersville Middle School renovation project. So okay, there we go. Do not want that. There you go. So we did design and bid opening on that renovation project through last fall, and then did the bidding and opened those up in the winter. And we're awarded everything in February, went through all of the other pre-construction work. The asbestos removal work was done in March, predominantly over spring break. That was accomplished, so we had the back of the building emptied, so that from April 4th all the way through about the second week in July, we did all of the construction work and got it done in a timely fashion and met all of our milestones on that. The staff was able to move in the third week in July, so they had 3 weeks to move in prior to the start of school and get really settled into their room and work out any of the bugs that we would have, as you would have in any type of construction. And right now they're closing all of the open items, and there are just a few of them related related to getting retainage back to contractors and a few punch list items. I think we are down to 7. The original list is a little over 90. So it's just a couple items to clean up there. Throughout the entire process, I was able to work with Casey DeFaw and Anthony McGinn from our communications department. We took probably a little close to probably 1,000 pictures of the construction while it was going on, and they were able to create a really neat montage and video of the project from start to finish. And so we'd like to show that to you now, and then if you have any questions, we'll be able to answer those for you. So here's a video that was produced especially by Casey DeFaw from our communications department. No stadium sound on this one. That's really cool.
Probably one of the most informative infographics I've seen for a project like that, where it went old layout, new layout. Fantastic.
We really appreciate the work Casey did on that, and Anthony really did a nice job. Very nice job. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. That goes without saying, yeah. But very, very nice work, though. And it really does tell a nice story as to where it started and where it ended up. It did finish, as you know, a little bit ahead of schedule. Everybody did get in, and it was on budget. So we're very happy with that as well. So unless you have any questions, that's all we had for the construction update. Awesome. Thank you.
So at this time, I'm going to ask our Chief Academic Officer, Ms. Cara Vicente, to come to the podium. She is going to provide the board and community an update as it relates to our school improvement plans.
Good evening. So as Mr. Hyde said, tonight I'm here to discuss our school improvement plans. Last year in 15-16, we actually went through the process of redesigning our school improvement plans. Prior to that, they really had been an event, a different plan each year, and not really a continuous improvement cycle. And so last year we went through the process of redesigning them so that they would align to the district's strategic plan and be an ongoing continuous improvement model. To do that, we started having our schools actually set both long-term and short-term goals rather than focusing on goals that only lasted a single school year. This year, school improvement planning actually started in the spring of 2016 and continued throughout the summer for most of our schools, working with their building level teams. Plans were developed to include both annual targets for our 4 areas that were aligned to the strategic plan goals, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in detail in a second. And then they were also include 3-year academic goals that are aligned to the 4 primary academic goal areas of reading, math, science, and writing. This is a change from last year when we only focused in the area of ELA and math. Academic goals have both a school-wide and a subgroup focus, and we do expect that SIP plans will be revised as necessary as new data arrives. So instead of seeing necessarily only a yearly plan come in front of you, if new data comes into play, schools may choose to update their plan throughout the year, which really models the continuous improvement goals that we want them to have. So in terms of the actual plan, if you're looking through it, and that is a discussion item for later in the agenda tonight, we've asked every school to look at our 4 goal areas in our strategic plan and to align a goal to that. They're actually using data, their 5 essential survey data from the last 2 years. That's data, survey data that teachers and in some cases students or parents have provided depending upon the participation rate. So each school has set a goal that's aligned to strategic plan based on their own school performance data. And those are annual goals. We will have all of our schools participating in the 5 essential surveys again this fall, so they'll have new data for 16-17. We also have every school looking in 4 key academic areas: reading, writing, math, and science. They are utilizing PARCC data if they're a K-8 building, or for our high schools who are in a transition between assessments, they're looking at a combination of using their previous ACT data to be looking at setting goals in relationship to their future SAT data, and they are using some of the previous PARCC data, in particular the Illinois Science Assessment. And so they set the high schools had a little bit more challenge because they're the assessment structure is changing, but they too have set goals in those 4 areas. They've looked at progress targets for each year in those 3-year annual goals. And for this year, we actually had our schools not only set a school-wide goal, which is often the easier goal to achieve, but also subgroup goals. So every school looked at those subgroups that may be not performing at the same level as their whole school and set individual targets for those sub-goals and those subgroups. And their real focus is on closing the gap of achievement between the building's performance and those subgroups. For example, if a building has a subgroup for low-income students and that group is performing below the school average, then their goal is to close that gap. And that might be a pretty aggressive goal for them, but it is something that we want to see them working towards. Questions about our school improvement plans? Those are going to be before you for discussion for tonight and then to be approved at a future board meeting. Any questions at this point?
Okay, just a reminder for the board, we did significantly revise the school improvement plans to be more strategic and target focused. And they provide both a balance of obviously ensuring that we continue to improve in our academic overall performance, but they also help address the issues of culture and also developing the whole child. They again are aligned specifically to the strategic plan that we have as a district. It is increasingly important that if we're going to require this level of work and planning, that all of our systems be in alignment to prevent a compliance-driven type culture to develop in our district. This is more about ownership and accountability. So I'm very pleased with the work. And again, as Ms. Vicente shared with you, you'll have an opportunity to review and provide commentary on school improvement plans, and we'll provide you with regular updates throughout the year.
And I would just add that our four assistant superintendents that directly work with building principals, Shelley Nackey, Joe Schumacher, Bill Dorn, and Stephanie Ramstead, actually have spent a lot of time working with their building principals, coaching them, providing feedback throughout this process, and will continue to do so. And so they are actually the individuals who are spending in-depth time with those school principals, helping them strategize and continue to keep their school improvement process, their plan, a living, breathing document. So kudos to them. That's a large part of their role.
Okay. At this time, thank you, Ms. Vicente.
I have a question.
Sir.
In that this is a work session, and I do see that the SIP plans are on here, they will be approved at our next meeting, correct?
That's what we said, yes, sir.
Yes.
Would it be possible to pick a school and run us through the whole school improvement plan?
Right now, or
No. For the next
time?
meeting?
Absolutely.
As an example, and you know, you talked about the different areas that impacted, maybe one that's representative of the whole, or maybe.
Absolutely. Mr. Hyde and I and the assistant soups can select one, and we'd be happy to walk you through it.
I don't really care which one, but I just think it would be interesting. Hello, Mrs. How are you? I just thought it would be interesting for us.
I think to your question, I think it's probably best if we show you two quick snapshots of schools, one at the primary and one at the secondary, because the high school focus on data is significantly different because of ACT and other assessments. So maybe we show you those. We'll make it brief, but we'll select two quality schools for you to review.
The reason I'm interested is some of us who are more old-timers used to be very involved with the school improvement plans. We went through every single school improvement plan, and they had input to it. And I'm not suggesting I want to go back to that, but it was just interesting to see how it's evolved. I'm sure it has improved, and we'd like to see that.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you.
Next topic, Mr. Mora is here to provide a 2016-2017 update as it relates to human resources. He had, as you look through this packet, board members, as he leads you through, I think you'll be very impressed at the work that's been done throughout the summer. Mr. Mora.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. HR, it's quite busy over the summer. Typically, think kids are home for the summer. It's kind of slowed down for us. It's the opposite for HR. So the HR team has been pretty busy this summer. It's been a few years since we made a presentation to the board specifically on staffing and how we get ready for the first day of students. So the first slide looks like we have everybody's here and everybody's presenting, but no, I would just like to recognize a couple of the team members that are here in the audience with me, Laura Garrison, Katie Mitmoen, and Carla Hedrick. The three of our coordinators spent a lot of hours, evenings and weekends, making sure that we had a certified teacher in front of every kid the first day of school. So I would like to recognize them as well. With that being said, why don't we get going on today's presentation? So here we go. So as of Friday, August the 26th, these are the numbers. Obviously, since then, we've hired a few more people to come on board. So we had a total of 303 hires into the district. So it's quite a significant amount. This is the overall view, and we're going to break down everything a little into more detail. So how does that break down? 210 certified teachers. Obviously, you see the numbers right there. 128 are replacing people that have left the district for one reason or another. 82 are new positions. Mrs. Harkin has spoken about some of those positions in the past in previous presentations. We'll break it down here as well as obviously substitute teachers. We actively recruit subs. And then from our sub pool, we end up hiring quite a few teachers. So it is kind of our own in-house recruitment as well as some other changes in the administrative group. There's 21 people that moved positions and a few new people that came on board. And 52 positions in the non-certified groups. They were primarily replacements. It just happens that the same number, 52 of people that came forward to HR, accepted jobs, or thought they accepted jobs, declined jobs, and went someplace else. So how does that break down? The new positions here is a breakdown of what it is, thanks to Mr. Hyde's direction. Yes, sir?
Hey, they declined?
We do.
Okay.
The number one reason that we get is either a job closer to home or family situation changes, they relocate out of the area.
Thank you.
This is the new positions that came on board. This is a breakdown of them. Obviously, we added STEM and art at the elementary buildings, the digital learning coaches specifically supporting the one-on-one deployment, as well as interventionists to add additional support to our students, as well as a new program that is new to us, the ALAP, the Alternative Learning Opportunity Program, specifically housed at Dundee Crown and CMS. This is another new initiative that we're starting, as well as the other positions are added for class sizes and various, the reconfiguration. Obviously, everything ties together. You heard from Mr. Bombalis about the CMS remodel, and you saw the physical space. We're going to talk about how those spaces being occupied by the personnel that we have hired. The breakdown on the general education positions, here it is by level. At the high school level is 54 positions, 47 middle school and elementary. Special education had some growth because of new students move in, qualification, things of the like. So a total, this is just the breakdown for everything. Now we break down our high schools by each category and want to make sure that there's the 29 at Dundee Crown. That doesn't mean that everybody left. We actually happen to have a large number of retirees from Dundee Crown. There were 11 of them this year that retired. Obviously, we need to replace them, and again, some people move on to other opportunities. Hampshire High School, we saw an increase in enrollment, and Mrs. Harkin will be speaking a little bit more about that. Obviously, with 150 additional students, we need additional teachers to come along. Our middle school, obviously CMS had the largest number, and that also has a lot to do with the reconfiguration now that they are housing 6th through 8th grade students there. It's quite a significant change. There's a lot more students. CMS has now become our largest middle school now that we have the 3 grade levels in there. Here's part of the reconfiguration, how it broke down between CMS and Lakewood. Obviously, we added some special education positions as well. And just Lakewood, some people ended up staying in that building. They wished to stay in that building. Mr. Williams and myself spent quite a few hours working out this process to make sure that everybody that was relocating from Lakewood ended up in a proper home that they would like to continue working with us this year. At the elementary level, general education, this is the breakdown. Obviously, some of these positions are because we have increased some of enrollment. Some of the other positions have moved from one location to the other. But again, all of these are individuals, people that had to be touched in one way or the other through the HR department to make sure that we manage those changes. With the special education, obviously some programming is moving from one building to the other. This is how it was affected and how each one of our buildings was moving programs or additional staff or replacement of staff. Obviously at their secondary level, as you can see, Dundee Crown and CMS continue to have the highest number, but that also had to do with the retirements and the reorganization of CMS. These are technically our hard-to-hire positions. Our hard-to-hire positions, we really try to go out there and figure out how can we best attract the best talent. Obviously, speech and language pathologists, we are in high need for those positions. Psychologists, social workers, so the Education Service Department and HR work very collaboratively, to make sure that we engage the best candidates possible to come into District 300. As far as our administrative group, this is a breakdown of how the 21 positions ended up working out. 8 new people joined the administrative ranks, and they were either from outside of the district or promotions within the district from the teaching ranks into administrative positions. The biggest changes that I want to point out in this slide are our new principals. So at this point, we have 6 brand new principals in these buildings. Out of all those principals, 1 person is from the outside, that's at Meadowdale. Other than that, all of the other positions were promotions with or part of the reorganization through Mr. Hyde's vision for our buildings. Oh, I went too fast. The non-certified positions is a breakdown of what we have. Obviously, with this many additional staff, there's a little bit of turnover. the DESPA, which is our custodial and secretary positions. We have approximately let me get the number correctly. We have 378 employees that are classified on the DESPA, and over the summer we had some changes of 14 FTE. It's not necessarily, there's some retirements, mainly, no more than that. And DESA, which is our paraprofessionals, I'm sorry, I had those numbers reversed, it's 318, and DESA is 378. DESA is our paraprofessionals, obviously with special education needs, we have to very targetedly hire these positions. The AVID tutors, your presentations have been given in the past in relation to AVID and how that works. So again, they're young college students mainly that come on board to continue to help our students. And the last piece, all of our coaches you said today, recognizing some of our special education students for Special Olympics. Those are part of this extra pay positions. All our basketball coaches, every sport, clubs and activities. All those are changes and things that need to take place in order for us to make sure that we have accurate records.
The 95 extra pay positions for the coaches and the clubs, is that in addition to what we already had? So that's in addition.
No, they are not addition. Yes, they're changes. They're not additions. So somebody may no longer continue to be I'm gonna pick on soccer, the soccer coach, and somebody else is gonna step into that role. Summer school. Summer school, again, like I said earlier, may seem like it's a kind of not too much going on, but there is quite a bit of things that take place in HR in order to get things ready, especially because we start so early in the spring. The main thing is ESY is part of the special education part. As you can see, there's 184 paraeducators that continue to work over the summer. Again, there's a process that's been bargained in the contracts we have to follow and make sure that everybody has the opportunity to apply. And if they want to continue working, they're selected. Obviously, 79 teachers work in just that specific program. So over the summer, there's a multitude of programs that are going on concurrently, ESY being the largest. Second to that is our summer school for our high schools. This year, I believe, has grown a little bit more. We had 61 teachers that were participating in this program. And as well as I think Freddie was part of the STEM camp. And obviously, there's 11 teachers that were hired for those positions. Again, additional growth and opportunities for young students. And as far as the bottom two numbers, the media paraeducators play a very important role this year. We decided to bring them on board over the summer to help with specific tasks. One of those to assist with the deployment on one-on-one, the textbook organization, as well as the reorganization of Lakewood to CMS, those transition to make sure that since they are working in the media centers, they're the ones that have the most firsthand knowledge of what is taking place. As well as over the summer, we end up hiring some young college kids to come and help us in Buildings and Grounds Department. All those positions were hired, but how did we create some of those openings? Some of those openings were right here. We had 45 retirements and 95 resignations. And this is a breakdown by group of how our resignations and our retirees have come into play. As well, we currently have 16 lead members who are on leave of absence for the rest of this year. Obviously, we hire a lot of young staff. They end up having babies. They stay home with their kids, so we do have to hire somebody to backfill those positions. That's why the number may seem a little higher, but 16 is quite a significant number. That means that next year we will find them a spot for them to be with us. So as a summary of everything that's taking place in HR, and again, a lot of the credit goes to the team because in HR, we do have a very well-working machine. Everybody pitches in and everybody has a part to play. But over the summer and for the first day of school, we had 783 positions that were touched by the HR department in one way or another. The certified positions, 251, which included our teachers, or subs or administrators. The non-certified, the extra pay, and overall the ESY. So it is definitely a busy time in HR over the summer. We still are hiring. We're still monitoring student enrollment. And if we student enrollment increases a little bit more, we may potentially have a couple other positions to fill. Thank you.
You guys were busy.
Yes, we were a little busy.
Any questions, Ms. Mora? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next presenter is going to be Ms. Harkin. She's replacing Mr. Emrickson, who has lost his voice. So Ms. Harkin will provide a presentation and update on student enrollment.
All right, so we're already into the start of the school year, and we benchmark our enrollment first day, sixth day. Those are official counts. We do look after the Labor Day weekend, and then the September 30th is the final date. So today we want to provide some historical perspective of what's happening with our enrollments. And then what we want to do is compare it to last year's enrollment, and then provide that breakout in relationship to the highest point in the last, since FY11, where we're at with the buildings. And then we want to talk about some buildings that we're currently watching to see what's happening with their enrollment, because we have some that we're kind of concerned that we're starting to push up against these high water marks in relationship to specifically, since FY11, we've added full-day kindergarten, and certainly we now have class size caps that are out there as well too, which are impacting some of our enrollment. So while we're looking at that high water mark, we have changed what we're doing in our buildings, and we want to keep an eye on this and provide that information to you tonight. So we've broken it out based upon levels, and what we see in elementary is in FY11, we had the highest point of 8,555, and now we're down to about 8,288 with our kindergarten through fifth grade. So we see it coming down. And in a lot of districts, what you want to do is, where are you at in the bubble? Certainly there's trends in neighborhoods in relationship to parents being happy in their neighborhoods and their kids aging out of our system. So what we can see right now is, the good news is elementary has come down, which will push through our system, which should help relieve some of the pressure we're starting to see at the upper grade levels. Middle school, we saw a peak in our FY14, where we're at 4,400, and right now we're at 4,349. So it's dropped down. So again, the good news is we're seeing to get some relief there, and we've really seen through this transition through that we really had pretty flat enrollment over the last 5 years. But high school is on the trend up. And again, that was where our bubble was pushing through. And we believe for our high school that this year is probably the peak in relationship to where we're going to see our high watermark with where kids are certainly currently in the system without any future growth. So those are kids pushing through. Overall, K-12, we are up from 18,687 in FY11 to 18,826 students. Really overall, 200 kids in a system of 26 schools isn't a huge deal. We're able to absorb most of that, but again, because we've done some structural changes at our elementary with the full-day kindergarten and the hard class size caps, because sometimes back in FY11 we had horrible class sizes, and certainly we probably could squeeze a few more bodies in to the detriment of our staff and to the detriment of our students. Just to point out our special programs, this represents our outplace, which is the green bar, our self-contained, which is the red bar, and our pre-K. What you can see in this chart is our outplace has stayed pretty consistent. Our special education staff, education services, Shelley's doing a great job with making sure our kids get the appropriate services, but they do a good job monitoring to make sure if we can keep kids in our district, in their least restrictive environment, in the best support system. She certainly tries to do that. The good news is that number stayed stable. Our special education self-contained has stayed relatively stable as well too. Certainly we do provide them the self-contained classroom if that's the most appropriate setting for them. But again, we do a good job monitoring and making sure we put them in the least restrictive environment. The blue bar, as you can see, has come down. Part of what that change has been is we used to offer a multiple setup where you could maybe go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you could go half day, and we changed that about 4 years ago when we negotiated our last contract that said we're just going to provide one Monday through Friday consistent programming in relationship, so that we had a consistent program for our students versus a varied program, and we felt that that was most effective for our students. So that number, when you look at our total enrollment, has come down and really is probably the piece that offsets it. It looks like our enrollment's really stayed flat, but that number really has a different impact because we just provided different intensive services to our students. Cambridge Lakes, again, that's part of our overall enrollment that we report and we get credit from the state. So they are included in and they certainly are a portion of the district, and there are students we have to serve. They started out at 739 students in FY12. They peaked at 938, and at this point in time, they're at about 825 students. So this is our elementary comparison. As you can see, the red shows where a district is right now on the far right column, highest to current year, as well as their high water mark in relationship to the students that they serve. And you can see in most cases, most districts are below that high point that they were at. But Eastview is one above, Gary D. Wright is above, and Hampshire L is above. One thing you have to note that this does not take into consideration where if we had a preschool program and we've moved students. So Wright, as an example, had preschool students there last year, no longer has them, but their enrollment's still the same amount as the previous year. So we've moved some students to provide some relief in relationship to K-12 or some special education services as well too, to try to make sure we're doing the best job to try to not rezone and change our boundaries and provide the best services to our students with the least impact to our students overall, inclusive of our special education. But again, while we look at that highest mark in comparison, and when we're in red, again, we didn't have full day kindergarten, which takes up usually at least one more classroom in each one of our elementary buildings. Middle school, everything's pretty much in red. Hampshire, of course, we know is our area in the district that continues to see some growth, and so Hampshire Middle School is up 29 students since their highest mark, and Carpentersville Middle School is up 405. And again, I think Alberto did a great job because tonight's presentations all kind of tie into each other, but certainly the addition of the classrooms from Chuck's presentation is part of the reason, and that's where we've added the 6th grade students to Carpentersville Middle School. It has become a very, very large school. And if you would look back at some previous slides, they had at one point in time in FY11 661 students at that building. That building is almost doubled now from where we were a couple years ago. But certainly we know having that 6-8 structure and the K-5 structure for our East Side schools, we believe is a better programmatic offering to our students. But Carpentersville Middle School is a very big school right now. And then for our high schools and our Oak Ridge and our outplaced, Hampshire, again, is the common theme. We're continuing to see build out over in that direction. And Dundee Crown is back to its highest point as well, too. But again, we feel like that's coming up and then should come back down. So I think, we shouldn't exceed with the highest current year, but we'll continue to watch and trend that. I'm going to back it up. A couple highlights and that I just want to point out that's on our radar right now. Our schools that we're starting to really want to keep an eye on, Gilbert's, Wright, Liberty, Hampshire L, and Newbert Elementary are probably schools that right now with where we're at, we're starting to see turnovers in neighborhoods. We're starting to see growth that's out there. And what we're going to recommend is that we work through the Construction and Facility Oversight Committee to talk about what's trending in those buildings and really discuss what need to be some long-range options for us. Right now, at Wright and Gilbert's, it's got availability for 30 classrooms. We have one classroom left at one of those schools if we were to hit our student class size ratio and without displacing any of our current services, and that really has been our objective. We're watching it closely, and we're hoping that we don't pop a section, as we refer to it lovingly in our offices. And then, but we certainly want to trend it, and so we're certainly having some conversations about how do we monitor that and making some recommendations going forward to ensure that we don't cause our problems for ourselves long term.
Any questions of Mrs. Harkin? Thank you.
Okay.
You can just transition to your next topic.
Okay, so as I had come back to you at 8-9, we voted on the tentative budget. So tonight I'm here to provide an update on the tentative budget. In the board package, we did have the official budget that we will be coming back to you on 9/27 to hold our public hearing and have you vote on the 2016-17 final budget. So again, I think really, again, this ties into what Alberto just spoke about previously. We did do a lot of program enhancements that are very exciting in this year's budget. We did the one-to-one rollout, grades 1 through 8. We added digital learning coaches to support the one-to-one rollout. We added elementary art. We added elementary STEM. We added interventionists at all of our elementary school. We added the ALOP program at CMS and DCHS. We added ELA staff at the middle school, and we returned our 6th grade students to CMS. And so, as you saw in the numbers of Alberto, we kept him hopping through all of these program enhancements, and his staff did a great job with all of that. These are slides that were presented to you in the past at the last meeting. They have been updated. Really, the primary update is we did get our final general state aid number that was a little bit higher than what we had presented in the last budget. So the numbers in front of you tonight are a little bit better, but this slide represents what our operating fund projections would be if the pension shift and property tax freeze were going to be there. So the good news is we will run at a surplus in FY17, but if we were to get property tax shift or the pension shift to us, the property tax freeze, we would start deficit spending in FY18, and we would be below our fund balance threshold of 25% of fund balance in comparison to our expenditures in FY21. So topics that are being discussed out there in Springfield with the pension shift and property tax freeze. But again, we're not overreacting, nor do we need to overreact to that concern. This is the slide that shows you the blue line represents what our fund balances would be with those factors taken into consideration. And the red line represents what our board policy, our recommended fund balance dollar amount should be. And in FY20, we would cross the line. And in FY21, we would be below the threshold of what the fund balance policy recommendation is. This represents our operating fund projections without the pension shift or tax freeze. We do have some concerns going forward still that are on the horizon that are projected based off of the current state aid formula that we have in Illinois. And what has happened is our EAV has gone down, our general state aid has gone up. And there's another slide that I'll show you in relationship to that. But we've seen almost $30 million additional revenue from the state because of our declining EAV, which has certainly supported a lot of the other programs enhancements that are presented in front of you. The problem is the good news is our EAV is going up. We're starting to see new property, and the values are returning to the area that we service. But with that, our general state aid will start to go down, much like when we were concerned about this in FY11 and much like we were concerned about this in 2004. So with factoring in what the current general state aid model is, we would not deficit spend in FY17 or 18, but we would start deficit spending in FY19. And again, because we're not going to overreact, we'll continue to monitor that with the Board Finance Committee. And then as we have built up some reserve balances right now, we'll have discussions about how we want to get back to flush or determine how we want to address if we were in a position of deficit spending. But the good news is none of that, when you look at the percentage of our fund balance, we would not be near the 25% fund balance percentage even through FY21. But certainly if you continue to spend your savings, at some point you have no savings left if you're spending it on your day-to-day operations. So it'll be something we'll need to discuss and continue to monitor. So this is a slide on the general state aid history. This was in your last presentation, and the only difference is we were at about $40.5 million, and what we ended up with our general state aid for this year, which is that high red bar that's up there, we ended up about $41 million, and that's the detail that drives and supports what what's happened with general state aid. And again, because our EAV has started to increase, it will start to come down, and pretty drastically. And what we see is a $30 million increase since FY13, and then we'll be back to $21 million less in general state aid by FY21. And certainly those are large dollar figures.
I have a question on the EAV. This may seem self-evident, but Weber Grill, we worked out an arrangement with them. They are within our district, correct?
Yes.
Where does the Huntley Outlet Mall sit? Is that in our district or is that in Huntley's?
It's in our district.
It's in our district. And they're talking about tearing that down in January.
Right.
What impact might that have?
There's nothing there.
Well, there's a huge
Yeah,
piece of
so
property
the
there.
property value that is there is part of property taxes. Once you tear down the building, just like in Hoffman Estates when they tore down that Allstate building, while that EAV comes out, that has no dependence upon the property taxes we collect. So when we set our rate, we take into consideration all of our property value. When that amount comes up, our tax rate goes up, and the burden gets shifted to all of our local property tax owners in that process, so less property. The good news is if you drive around, we have all sorts of new property going on. I'm seeing it all over. Plus the Weber does come on this year, so that helps us from just our property taxes. But overall, what ends up happening is because we can collect the same amount and there's less property owners in our system, we all end up picking up the burden the way the current formula works. Is that your understanding of it?
Yes.
Okay.
And that mall was a TIF that didn't work out.
Yeah, it's just, right. The conversation, and we did talk to, I was aware of this through the Village of Huntley. The plan, I believe, is to put something else in that location, but the problem is once you tear it down, it will become new property. So, it does have an impact to the local taxpayers as well, too, that we'll want to keep. The good news is this year, the CPI overall is the lowest level it will have been in a while again. So again, incrementally.
But it may not be retail space.
Right. But that's okay, because as long as it's new property, it's okay. What type of space it is doesn't matter to us. So again, we showed the chart earlier with property tax freeze and with the pension shift. And in this area, without those factored in, we're currently in compliant through FY21, would be in compliance with our fund balance policy. But you're starting to see that blue line come down, and it eventually would cross the red line. So this are all the backups, the details, the summaries of all of the various funds, the history related to all of it. Again, the detailed budget is included in your board package tonight. That represents the state form that we need to submit. All of that ties out to these sheets that are in front of you. And again, we will present the formal budget to you at the September 27th meeting. Again, just from a historical perspective, we continue to spend below the state average, and if we spent the state average, we would receive $39 million more spend $39 million more on students if we spend at the state average level. We spend the lowest amount in Kane County per student, and if we spent at the same amount that Geneva spends at, we would spend $74 million more in District 300 on our students. And again, we continue to have an average tax rate in relationship to the Kane County unit school districts. And, it's unfortunate that, we continue to have the property tax fight we do have in the state of Illinois with the heavy reliance. But again, we tend to be below the average in Kane County in relationship to our spending and our tax rate. So I'll be back to you on 9/27 to hold the budget hearing and vote on the final budget. And it will answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you. And that concludes the superintendent's report for this evening.
We have no one signed up for public participation, so we will move to number 11. Mrs. Burley, anything new on legislative update?
Not a thing. Unless Fred knows of something. No.
Pardon me?
I was just referring to Fred to see if he Mr. Hyde, to see if he knew of anything. But.
Mr. Hyde, do you have any comment there?
No, I could espouse at length, but I will refrain.
All right, I will follow past protocol that Mrs. Miller has followed, and I will just basically read different titles here, and if there's any discussion, stop me. I'll just read the numbers: 12.1, 12.2, 12.3, 12.4, 12.5, and I would just indicate on 12.5 that I had the pleasure of attending the pre-bid meeting and got educated and was very impressed with the way Diane White handled all those vendors who were in there throwing questions at her. Nice job. I didn't get a chance to talk to you afterwards. You were kind of sworn, but 12.6. Also, you should know that all of these items have been either discussed at a finance committee meeting or at the CFOC meeting, so these shouldn't be new. 12.7.
I have a quick question.
12.6.
Yeah. On Newbert, I thought for some reason, for years, I think that they had talked about wanting a sign, but we were told that the Village of Algonquin wouldn't let them. Anybody know anything about that? I know that was brought up for years.
Would we have to get a permit from the village?
I see a
Yes.
resounding yes from Mr. Boombalis. Yes.
Okay.
There was a time when there was one particular employee at the village that was deaf on signs, and that employee left there several years ago, but I don't know.
Okay. That's probably.
We would have to apply for a permit. 12.7, 12.8, 12.9, 12.10, 12.11, 12.12 we've discussed, 12.13, 12.14, 12.15, 12.16. Could I have a motion, please, to approve the consent items, item number 13?
Second.
Mr. Alessio?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Board discussion, Mr. Alessio? Finance? On the board construction, the only thing that I would add there is that the construction committee and their architect have reviewed the plans for Cambridge Lakes addition, and there were several pages of questions that have been forwarded to Cambridge Lakes, which they've responded to, and there's now another series of questions on the engineering documents, and that process is still ongoing but not yet approved for construction. Board discussion on any topic, Mr. Alessio. Ms. Garcia.
I had the pleasure of going to Dundee Crown High School in a wing that I've never been in before, and it was the like electricity classroom.
Career technical ed.
If you haven't been there, I highly recommend checking out the electricity classroom. Looks like you're at Museum of Science and Industry. It's the coolest place I've ever been in, and I want to take the class. But I also went to all the other classrooms in that wing because once I saw one, I thought I should see them all. Doing some really incredible things. So it prompted me to want to do that at other schools. So I'm going to be checking out the trade. I don't want to call them trades. What did you call them?
Career and technical education.
Yeah, at the other high schools, because if that's the level that we're teaching these kids, we are sending them out into the world with really some advanced skills. Like seriously, the electricity program is pretty cool. Have you been over there?
Yes, ma'am, multiple times.
Very cool. So,
And each administrator in district has a lamp.
really?
They make table lamps that have USB ports. We will make
That's
sure
electricity too.
that we follow up with the board on that issue.
Get one.
Okay. That was
Somebody
one of
made
my
a
first gifts
bicycle.
upon entry to the district.
Somebody made a bicycle lamp. It's there. It's very cool stuff. Terribly cool. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm enthusiastic about something I just learned about, so I had to share. I had to discuss.
Mr. Fiorentino?
No comments.
Mrs. Burley?
Well, I just want to mention that we had our food pantry opening last week, and that was greatly attended. It was 2 weeks ago, and I assisted last week for their first week after that. And I'm pretty impressed. I'm really, really impressed. And of course, the wheels are already turning on, wow, how can we like move this around to, expanding it and whatever we can do. There's a lot of possibilities. And then Jacobs High School now has their Eagles Wings, which is their food pantry that they're starting on their own. And I spoke with Bo Vossel about that a little bit. So, a lot of really cool things going on in the district. So that's all I've got. Mr. Hyde, do you have any community updates?
I do. Thank you for asking, Ms. Burley. Board members, just quick note. So obviously we're very proud of the food pantry. That was a lot of work, a lot of effort on behalf of staff, Ms. Whitecotton, Mr. Whitecotton, but Chuck Bambalis as well. To take an idea from concept to reality takes a great deal of sweat equity and focus. And as frustrating as it can be to sometimes work with outside entities that don't understand the requirements of regulations and health code, and we were able to successfully do that and launch that program. Really pleased to that. So far, the pantry is expected to support over 100 families, or approximately 500 people each week. Thank you. Also, I'd like to share the Patriot Day ceremony. As you know, September 11th, and I'll, I have a personal connection to September 11th, having many of my wife's family who work for the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, and had to deal with the tragic events of that day, plus the follow through. I know that Mr. Fiorentino, if you've not had an opportunity, Mr. Fiorentino himself was interviewed in conjunction with another documentary. Mr. Fiorentino, our board member, was actually right across the street from the Pentagon, less than a mile away in Alexandria, when the Pentagon accident occurred, and when the attack occurred, and he tells a really compelling story and shares his experiences. It was a short video, but quite compelling, and it's nice to be able to make a personal connection. But along those same lines, I did get an opportunity to participate in the Eastview Elementary School's Patriot ceremony. They were actually recognized by the village for having conducted this program for over 15 years. This program serves to acknowledge and turns a very tragic day into one where we get to honor and celebrate all of our local heroes who continue to support and serve us in every capacity. So it was really a pleasure to be there for that. We've talked about the food pantry grand opening. Mr. Fiorentino and I spent some time together this last week as well. We did have an opportunity because we were meeting to discuss some other issues at Westfield Community School. And on that very day was the Ellis Island experience for 8th grade students. And if you've never been to Westfield, it's a rather large campus because it does serve K-8. But imagine every 8th grader in costume, as you see clearly depicted here, lining the hallways with security guards, staff, in uniform, shouting at them. Now imagine you're an immigrant coming into the States, you speak little or no English, and someone's yelling at you in another language. You don't really understand the process. You don't understand what they're saying to you. Students were shuffled throughout the building to give them a realistic depiction of what it was like to try and immigrate to the United States. It's quite impressive. Each student, as you can see, again, had costumes, had appropriate garb. They were each assigned a respective native home country. They were told what their careers were. Many came in carrying multiple children. These were dolls, but they came in carrying multiple children. Certain professions, interestingly enough, when you shared that, you were fast-tracked versus others who were not. If your paperwork wasn't completed accurately or in a timely manner, you were sent all the way to the back of the line, which snaked all the way to the other side of the campus. I felt very bad for those students. But at the end of the experience, they're actually interviewed to determine whether or not they will be admitted to the United States or they will be deported. And then there's a huge culminating activity at the end where students get to debrief and share about their experiences. So a really powerful opportunity for our students. I've seen Newbert Elementary School do this again or previously. So it's really nice to see us continuing to support this program as part of our social studies curriculum. So thank you to Mr. Rowling for his work, but especially for what's happening in our classrooms. There's some additional pictures. These are students. Actually, I believe that is the deportation line. And then years of service pins, I discussed that earlier this evening. At this time, I'd like to bring Mr. McGinn up to the podium to introduce a presentation for us. I apologize. I didn't realize you needed that.
So tonight it's my honor to kind of thank Chuck for his years of service and everything he's done in District 300, as this is his last board meeting. And I wanted to kind of tell a story that illustrated what I've learned from Chuck. This happened about maybe a year ago, and I was a young administrator trying to figure things out. And I was very, very, very serious at that time because I thought that laughter was a sign of weakness. And I will never forget this. We were conducting interviews for a director position in conference room C, and I was in the room with other directors, and we all had scripted questions that we were to ask. And there was a candidate who came in, and she was visibly nervous, and we would ask her these questions. She would give one-word answers, and I felt so bad for her. She started sweating, and then the question came to me. I asked my question. Jason Emrickson was next. He asked his question, and this poor candidate just continued to give one-word nervous answers. Chuck was next. He had his scripted question. He set it aside, and he looked at the candidate and he said, I've been listening to this band called the Foo Fighters, and I've been considering a career fighting Foo. How do you think that would go for me? So the candidate actually started laughing, and after that she opened up. And I believe that that's a candidate we actually ended up hiring. So he taught me that levity is important in leadership, and that's something that I would not have learned not in that moment. So in that vein, there were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about with Chuck today. This is a story I was going to tell, but for the sake of time, we'll move on to something else. And I want to talk about his accomplishments. There are so many great things that Chuck is known for. He's a great educator, he's a wonderful administrator, a great assistant superintendent, but he does not get the credit that he deserves for being a fashion icon.
Pink shirts.
If you take a look at these individuals and their trademark glasses, Joe Madden, Woody Allen, Martin Scorsese, where did they get their inspiration? It was a young Chuck Bombalis. There is currently a contemporary musical artist named Sia, and a lot of the kids are wondering, where did she get the idea to grow her bangs out over her head? Well, kids, I can tell you where she got that idea from. It was from a middle-high picture of Chuck Bombalis.
Jeez.
Arguably one of the most prolific fashion icons in the 1970s was Elton John, who of course had his he had his glasses, he had his white suits. But where do you think he got his inspiration? Senior year picture of Chuck Bombalis. And finally, in the early 1960s, there was a movie made. In the early 1960s, there was a movie made, and that movie starred Audrey Hepburn as a nun. Where did Audrey Hepburn get the inspiration? It was a young Chuck Bombalis.
Chuck, was that last week?
You got some splaining to do.
So I want to provide a brief history of Chuck Bombalis really quickly. So I wanted to point out, this is important, Chuck began his career here in D300 before I was born. That's true. So if you're wondering how long Chuck's been working here, longer than I've been alive. Chuck has gone through the entire D300 education system here. He started as an English teacher at Jacobs High School. Then he was a dean there before he was an assistant principal at AMS. He was a principal at AMS. He was the accountability principal in the ad building, a director of operations, principal at Hampshire High School, and the assistant superintendent of operations here in the administration building. I was also able to collect a few artifacts, and these are real. This is a honor roll that he received from Perry Middle School, February 1973. Super honor roll. Yes, super honor roll. This is a certificate of dramatics, and I hope that's where the nun picture came from, because otherwise you do have some explaining to do. That is also from 1973 at Perry Middle School. This is meaningful to me. This is a record of perfect attendance from 1974 to 1975. One of the things that I did learn from Chuck is how important it is to be at work, even when you're tired, even when you're not feeling well. In the 3 years that I've been here, he did not miss a single day of work unless it was a vacation, and I did learn a lot from that. So this is actually something that's meaningful to me. Number 12, for your fighting, it's not Dundee Crown. What was it at that time? No. Irving Crown. For your fighting Irving Crown Chargers, that's Chuck Bombalis, number 12. When I was told Dr. Dorn I was going to show this picture, he did want me to point out that he was the fastest quarterback that he had seen at that time. So I don't know if is that still true? That is Chuck Chuck modeling the shorts, and he's a coach here. Chuck also, he was very busy as a coach, so he would bring his daughter and both of his daughters to his coaching, and I believe that daughter is now teaching over at Westfield. Is that correct? The other daughter? Okay. Chuck not only helped to build Hampshire High School, but he also, of course, served as principal there. And he was also their principal during their first graduation on June 5th, 2009. So tonight, I'm really happy to be able to announce that we do have a Blue Ribbon Society, but moving forward, we're going to have the Chuck Bombalis Blue Ribbon Award. And just as Chuck went through K through 12 and then worked here, what we're going to do is we're going to award it to a senior who has gone through our entire D300 educational process, who has showed the same amount of pride and passion in our district that Chuck has, and we're going to award that this spring, and we're going to hope to have Chuck come back to present that award. And I did have two requests in addition to this to communicate. And the first one is that Kristen Corbo asked me to mention that Chuck gave her first job in D300. He was a summer school administrator. He hired her on as a summer school teacher, and from there she was able to advance to where she is today. The second request came from Gail Seaton. Gail is Chuck's administrative assistant, and each director has a mailbox or folder that they use to compile their work and get their messages, and Gail wanted me to show everyone what folder he uses. So I've got it here. And it is a Justin Bieber. So that is the folder that he uses. So that, Chuck, I do just want to thank you. For someone who had no experience in this job, I can't tell you how important he was to me in my development. Anytime I would do something good, he was the first person to text me or come by my office and say, good job. When I made mistakes, and I made a lot of them when I started, he would come into my office, he would sit down and say, what did we do wrong? How can we learn from this moving forward? And he didn't have to do that. So for him to be able to have those small mentoring moments, that meant a lot to me. So that's really why I wanted to thank him here tonight. So
for the board, two final things. Number one, I will be sure to vet our presentations a little more closely in the future. I did not realize we were going down the road of the Chuck Bombalis roast this evening, although it was quite entertaining. Excellent job to staff, who I know worked on that today. Well deserved. Yes, very well deserved. And I'm excited about the recognition. I wanted to acknowledge one group that stayed with us throughout the evening. If you notice behind Mr. Mora, Ms. Nackey, and Ms. Ramstead, we had 4. They've whittled themselves down to 3. But we have former Dundee Crown and Jacobs High School students who are now Elgin Community College students studying in the field of education. And they are here this evening to observe our board meeting. Please understand, we do not roast people at every meeting. There were 4. So I hope you all get 100%. She gets about a 90%. But thank you for being here, and thank you for your interest in public education. And everyone sitting in the front row are our senior admins, and everyone sitting around you, actually, everyone sitting around here are employees. So if you have any other questions or comments, and our board is always receptive to aspiring educators. So thank you for being here tonight and for your interest. I hope you got something out of it. Okay. Board members, that's all the comments for this evening.
We will not be having a second closed session, so I would be more than happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Stevens. Aye. Burley. Alessio. Motion passes 5-0.
So come on, that was totally.
No.